The village of Umu-Eze was a skeleton of its former self. For 3 generations, the sky had been a cruel, polished mirror of heat. Not a single drop of rain had kissed the red earth since the great betrayal. The elders called it the Gilded Rot. Legend says our ancestors discovered a spring of water so pure it tasted like starlight. But instead of sharing it with the neighboring tribes during the Great Famine, they hoarded it. They built a wall of gold around the spring and charged a bar of gold for a single cup of water. The earth, disgusted by this greed, did something terrifying. It swallowed the spring whole. The gold turned into a cancerous rot that seeped into the soil, making it impossible for anything to grow. The whispers of the soil began, a low, haunting moan that rose from the ground at night, the spirits of the greedy ancestors still trying to hoard the water that was no longer there. Traditional rituals, the slaughtering of goats, the pouring of libations, were no longer enough to satisfy a parched and angry earth. In the middle of this desolation, Zina was born. She was a child of the drought, thin and quiet, but she carried a secret. While the other children lost their teeth to malnutrition and scurvy, Zina's front tooth didn't fall out. It transformed. By her 7th birthday, it was no longer bone. It was a singular, shimmering golden tooth. It wasn't a curse, it was a rare biological anomaly, a gift from the very spirits who were tired of the rot. The news tore the village apart. "Pull it," the merchant screamed. "One golden tooth can buy enough grain from the coast to feed us for a year." "No," the priestess countered. "This tooth is not for trade. It is a spiritual key. It is the only thing pure enough to unlock what the ancestors bolted shut." The debate raged for days, but it was Zina who ended it. She walked into the village square, her small hand over her mouth. "The ground keeps calling my name," she whispered to her mother. "It says it is hungry for what it was once denied. I will give it back." The procession to the heart of the barren felt like a funeral, yet it carried the electricity of a revolution. This was the exact site where the golden wall had once stood centuries ago. As they reached the jagged fissure, a crack in the earth so deep it seemed to lead to the underworld, the wind began to howl. The greedy spirits were restless. They didn't want a sacrifice, they wanted a victim. The air grew heavy with spiritual resistance, making it hard for the villagers to breathe. Zina knelt at the edge of the abyss. The high priestess used a sterilized silver needle to loosen the golden tooth. There was no blood. Instead, a faint, amber light leaked from Zina's gums. As the tooth fell into the dark, jagged fissure, the earth fell into a silence so absolute it felt like the world had stopped spinning. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, a low, tectonic vibration started beneath their feet. The golden tooth didn't just sit in the dirt, it acted as a biological lightning rod. It sought out the deep, hidden pockets of subterranean moisture that had been locked away by the curse. As the gold, a symbol of the ancestors' sin, was offered back to the earth without a price tag, the gilded rot began to shatter. The greedy spirits, who had feasted on the village's scarcity for 100 years, found they could no longer inhabit a land reclaimed by a selfless act. They retreated into the shadows. Suddenly, a sound like a thunderclap erupted from the fissure. A geyser of crystal-clear water shot 50 feet into the air, drenching the parched villagers. From the dust, right before their eyes, green shoots began to break through. The biological and spiritual debt had been paid in full. The drought didn't just end, the land was reborn. Over the following months, the desert transformed into a thriving ecosystem. Tropical birds returned, and the harvest was so plentiful that the granaries groaned under the weight. But the most significant change wasn't the trees, it was the people. Zina, the girl who gave a piece of herself to save the world, became a symbol of stewardship. The villagers learned the hardest lesson of all: true prosperity is grown from what we are willing to lose, rather than what we fight to keep. Umu-Eze became a sanctuary, not because of its gold, but because of its heart.